We're on.
All right. Okay. Now I forgot exactly what I wanted to say. Isn't that funny? Okay. I think we have taken another unexpected turn. And, it's one of those little niggling thoughts that goes on in the head. Like it's either I've got syphilis, right? And I've got these little spirochetes connecting parts of my brain that would never otherwise connect, which is entirely a possibility. But don't tell anybody, okay? Is that we have, as usual, as I said, gone from a subject to another subject.
Okay.
And I'll make that very clear, very briefly. I've got a fruit fly in the house here. Annoying little thing. Had a fruit fly in the house. Now, there it is. Is that we went from the book of life, right? To the elixir.
Yes.
And I realized another one of our famous little froggy jumps, right? I realized that it's a good suggestion, don't get me wrong, but it has been confusing because my process-oriented brain is still writing on the fringe of the book of life.
I see.
As it is, of course, sleepwalking in the elixir. And I realized that today because I've been writing quite a bit and I seem to be like going in circles, expecting that the next turn of the circle will provide me with the way out, when in fact, there's no way out of the circle by continuing to go in a circle. So if you catch my drift, right?
Okay.
So what I've done is first, of course, very important step in realizing that, and have considered some way out. Because my first thought was, okay, the elixir story, the business play, is kind of, because I've written considerable amounts on the book of life. And I kept noticing that I seem to be continuing to write the book of life, but not directly addressing the elixir, except as a possible chapter. Or maybe there's a better word than chapter, I would say section of the book of life, right? In dealing with business. And when I'm driving around, usually I have a pad and a pen handy around to write down some words that I can remember, but they're coming like a flood. And by the time I get to a point of writing, I may as well just stop the car, right? Pull over to the side of the road, turn the motor off, and then continue writing.
Okay.
Because there are lots of very different things which I do find applicable to the elixir, but as you know, I'm not one to write and edit at the same time, even though the propensity to do that is highly elevated. I want to do it. I want to just go crazy, right? Because I'm principally just taking dictation. Because I go back and I read some of this stuff and I say to myself, did you write that?
Sure.
It's like, doesn't seem like me because I'm not that intelligent, but I can write. So I'm putting it all down. And a couple of those thoughts that steered me in a funny direction was where I stopped, just so I could have this chat with you, is the idea of scaling, which of course is kind of like, something to consider when you're building a business for other people to consider. And then the question came up, sort of like a life dilemma, is that when is enough enough? And what are you in it for? And what's driving you? Because if it's not something that has to do with, I don't know, what shall I say, self-completion or something, very California-ish like that, then what is it about? It's about money. because with that single motivation, scaling is all that's on anybody's mind. It's not, I wouldn't say that the first impulse is quality. Right? It doesn't seem to be that way. It's like, why am I doing this? I want to make money. And it's like, okay, then get a printing press, right? And engrave some plates and see where you go. And then I wrote something, subject number 2, which I found very, very quizzical. And it's something that I stopped writing on, but I put it in bold as a topic and stopped.
Okay.
And that's something I called the accidental eternal.
Wow.
And that's kind of like falling into a category. The eternal aspect is that you can't get out of because you're in a trap. It's kind of like the raccoon ugly story, right? That you're going to have to chew your arm off rather than wake her up to get out of this eternal situation that you've gotten yourself into. And that doesn't connotate with happiness or doing the right thing or any of those things that I speak about in the Book of Life. So I wanted to bring that up. Of course, there are lots of other items to discuss too. One of which I hope you read this thing about this bank in the Middle East. Yeah, I want to talk for a few minutes about that at the end.
Okay.
But let's address this subject first. And we never got to Bitcoin, and that's okay. We can leave that for a while.
Sure.
And discuss maybe based on the last 3 words, the accidental eternal is when you're sort of like, getting turned on sexually, spending a night with somebody, and then realizing that she's not going to leave the house. And in South Carolina, that means common law marriage, and she owns half of it from sleeping in your house overnight. And it's the analogy, of course, is, when you get started on business, are you the holder of the golden key? Because if you're not, then, you're somebody else's slave. And I think that's something to be avoided. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think there's a lot in there. And so to kind of bring my perspective into it as, everything that you've kind of put forward and absorbing it kind of all at once. I think, we have this life, right? We've been given the gift of being alive, and to take that as an aspect of there's no escape. Okay, so the infinite aspect of it is that, and in some ways it kind of is accidental. So the miracle of actually me being me, and that all of a sudden my existence as I grow from a child, I become more aware of myself and who I develop into. For me, there's some kind of accidental events that are going on that either from birth to where I am now have come into my life, which has influenced who I am and how I feel about everything. And the eternity aspect is, I guess, that we should feel like it is eternity, and there's no escape for us. So we may as well treat life as a business, and not just a business, but a business play, because we get to play with what we've been given. And I believe are here for a reason. Everybody's here for one particular purpose or another, and to execute that in a playful and enjoyable and fun way is what a lot of people, I think, forget or miss out on. In the like you were saying, they go get a job, we got to make money, I've got to go through my school. Once I'm done with my school, I've got to go to university, and now that I've got my university degree, I've got to go get a job, and then I've got to work and they're going to get a promotion. But as they're doing that, they're missing out on the aspects of, you know, applying themselves with their own unique gifts or their own unique interests. And that's more important than following this, I guess, outdated and rigorous process, which, you know, for whatever reason is what society believes they need to do right now, or the majority of society. So yeah, bringing out the book, which I know, you know, you write about these sorts of things, and, you know, will be intertwined in that book, and be the message that part of the message, or one of the messages, and then showing it with the elixir. And you know how you mentioned this is an experiment of us through Datalogical Services applying our own services to our own kind of desires and needs. And if we can do that for us, then we can do it for others. So the book, I see, is, yes, a holistic overview of this main message that I don't want to, I can't really sum it up into a few sentences, but it's the big picture. And inside it is this story or a chapter or a section about ourselves, starting with you. Danny Teal has stumbled upon, or been driven to create an elixir, and is considering taking it to market. And Danny Teal comes to a company, Datalogical Services, and asks, how can you help? Datalogical Services, in its infancy, and luckily hadn't been down a rigorous path so much that they say, well, this is what you do. You got to put in your proposal. We got to get an NDA. You got to do all this. But explored the idea and came up for themselves and for Danny Teal the notion of a business play, and explored the possibility that, you know, that could help. And that's where we are right now.
In some ways, as I am edging into understanding better what I'm doing, I'm starting to look at the Book of Life as being, I don't know, let's say 3 sections, right?
Okay.
I consider business would be one section. That could be the business of life, right? And then another section could be like the pleasure of life, right? And then the third section would be about dying.
Wow.
You know, the old, because that's a subject that we all have to deal with, right? Since we're born, we spend the rest of our life dying. So I've heard, right? Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I think it's just a perspective that we can change at any moment with as a whim or something we want to use to change our life, the way it's going, to another way of going. Right. And I think that as we live, and if we're in the section of doing business, right? So we've got a 3-act play now, sort of forming, right? And you know, I don't stop myself. I don't start trying to construct a play with 2 plot points and a resolution, 27 lines from the end of the page while I'm writing it. Even though, as I said, I'm taking dictation, I really have no idea, in all honesty, where this is going, which I think is a hard one battle that I've been going on my whole life. There was a conscious aspect of looking at a piece of writing, let's just call it, right? Something, a story, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kept thinking, okay, am I going off in the wrong direction here? Are aliens controlling my mind? Or am I simply trying to live the life that my family has taught me, with a hand slap here, a hand slap there, and whatever else to presumably, keep me in the right direction without using their lives as an example? Loving, wonderful people in their own way. But I don't want their advice unless I ask for it. And then it's like when I was in New York, there was some guy who insisted on presenting himself in Manhattan, as a cowboy, right? Sort of like the Dustin Hoffman story, Midnight Cowboy. And it was horrible because he was avoiding being acclimated. And at the same time, his views didn't change. And I found them rather offensive, particularly on one occasion when I said, I almost had his name there for a second, Jesse or something like that. And I said, man, I'd like your advice on something. Well, suddenly he got real serious, and he gave me that cocked eye look, and he took his hat off and rubbed his hair, which was greasy, of course, and gave me his piece of advice. And next time I said, thank you. And the next time we met, he like blew up in my face at something that I had considered thinking about a little bit from his comment. And he looked at me and he said, if you're not going to take my advice, then don't ask for it. And I was like, how primitive, I guess you're too used to, I don't know, roping and tying cattle.
Right.
And that's your opinion rather than saying, I don't know, I was just asking what you think.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you should have said then. And it's like, here's a subway token, man. Why don't you go back where you came from? And it's all of these little, I would call them interests, because they are in my mind, are adjunct, and in some ways, because they are there, I consider them to be a portion of a point I'm trying to make, even if while I'm writing it down, I don't understand where it's going. But when I go back, maybe a little like the conversation I'm having now, right? But if I go back after it's all finished in the editing phase, then it strangely makes sense. So it's more and more, compelling for me to just write. It's like, just write it down, will you? It's like, okay, I'm writing it down. And it would go on from there.
Yeah.
And one other comment based on something that you said is that I believe this process that you and I are going through is really a complete surprise. Why? Because it's what Jell-O is, right? You have Jell-O in Australia?
We call it jelly or
jelly.
Yeah.
So you have the brand. It's called jelly.
Well,
or
it's called
gelatine, right?
Aeroplane jelly.
Airplane jelly.
Yeah, that's the brand that you see in Woolworths. You can mix it in like different colors so you can be layered. That's what you're talking about. We serve it with ice cream.
Oh,
Jell-O.
Really?
It's a sweet. It comes like in, cherry flavored or strawberry flavored.
Yeah. And you have it without
lime.
You can use gelatin in making jelly, for instance, right? Out of fruit or pectin and all that sort of stuff.
Gelatin. Yeah, gelatin is the main ingredient of jelly, or
horse hooves, right? Cow hooves.
Yeah, that's what the.
But this process of congealing,
sure,
right? Seems to be what's going on, except we're kind of at the phase where we realize that we're still at room temperature, and that we expect the gelatin to congeal.
Sure.
And it's like somebody's going, have you thought about maybe, put it in the refrigerator? It's like, Don't tell me what to do. If you're asking for my advice, take it, put it in the refrigerator.
Right.
Hey, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like this process, long and arduous, I might say, without clear results yet, but we're always picking the bowl of cotton, right, as it's there in the process. And these many projects that I get and you get is kind of marking the way in a certain way. And I believe that this writing is exposition. It's trying to get a sense out of what's coming to us and where it fits, so that, you know, if we've been down that road before, then it's like, if you want to give instructions to somebody else, well, you have to tell them, like we do here. Well, you know, when you get to the place where that old man's dog was killed by that semi, that's where you turn left. And it's like, for somebody who's never been there, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. You remember where Joe used to live, him and his friends, the guy my brother went to school with. And then it's like, what? So this is a heavy duty process, especially for you and me, as we claw our way to the highway. It's kind of like we've been pushed out of a car, right? We brushed ourselves off and we climbed back up the embankment, back to the roadway to stick our thumb out and say, you going this way? Yeah, it's a funny combination of things, which I believe in many degrees you and I are both romanticizing. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think the process is still evolving and maybe always will be, but the process as I see it at the moment is you write, like you saying, you get these inspirations of whatever and to write anything down and you share it with me, and then I put it together and kind of pick the pieces. And I mean, I get inspired to write something myself, and then I share it with you, and then you know, take it to the next step. So in that process, which is what, you know, we've done in previous few days, I'd like to quickly share the development of of what we're at right now for me. Okay. So and to set people up who's listening, so Danny has shared a piece of writing with me, and that has inspired me to go ahead and write this. But before I read it, actually, there's one more point I want to make, and it is that I've come across this word, or two words, which is insecure overachievers. And the definition of that, one of the definition is exceptionally capable and fiercely ambitious, yet driven by a profound sense of their own inadequacy. Ooh. Now, I'll start my story, which is called The Elixir. Tagline of The Elixir: when an insecure overachiever stumbles upon a secret recipe for a herbal digestive elixir, he decides to turn it into a marketable product, only to be confronted by a firing squad of federal regulations. With support from his close friends, he discovers that there is more power in the elixir than he ever knew possible. The establishing shot: a landscape showing the undeniable season of spring, a cluttered basement that resembles a disorganized museum, artwork, clay sculptures, ancient and modern instruments, tools, books, and furniture. A man is in a deep sleep, but then wakes like he has just stepped into a steel bear trap without the screaming. Actually, more like a bucket of ice water has been thrown on his face. Leaping out of bed, he hurries to the basement where he rummages around the collection of empty bottles and wooden slatted boxes that was deeply buried in the back corner, until he pulls out a bottle filled with a dark red fluid and lets out a small, short laugh. He's walking down the street, staring into a small flask that he is holding at eye level. Someone sitting at a desk with a computer sees him through a window. A driver of an overcrowded bus glances to the side and notices him. The driver is caught in a mesmerizing long stare that causes the bus to slow, which sparks a chain reaction amongst the passengers to look up at the driver and then over to what the driver is fixated on. In less than a minute, the entire bus is looking at the man holding the flask, who doesn't break his attention from the flask. The man turns a corner and moves out of sight of the bus, and the bus continues on its way to drop its passengers off at their mundane jobs. Two children in a playground excitedly climb on the roof of a pirate ship in the sand as the man walks past. The children and the man remain unnoticed to each other as the man turns another corner. Entering a post office, the man hands the flask to the postmaster and whispers, "Taste this." With the smallest of sips, the postmaster is taken back to the good old days when the Yankees were north of the Mason-Dixie line. The Southerners created and shared their hospitality, welcomed mint juleps to help with the acclimatation of as much as possible, and shared the spirit and bounty of nature given them from the bosom of the sun. "Thank you," says the postmaster as the flask is handed back to the man. The man enthusiastically smiles and returns to an unbreakable gaze upon the liquid within the flask. The man is sitting at a kitchen table and starts a soliloquy. "Herein lies the power to achieve with a beginning, middle, and end. Now what? Shall I work my fingers to the bone for the benefit of others, or shall I play until my fingers bleed for the benefit of me? Shall I take it to market after mass producing it, so many people will contribute small change to it, so everyone gets a piece? Maybe. I may also be content to keep it for my family needs and celebratory events. A personal product. Do I want to face the firing squad of difficulties associated with entering the market and the requirements it makes on anyone and everyone who turns a profit? Do it for nothing and you'll avoid federal clashes, and that works outside their realm of influence. Be satisfied that you have done something that you are proud to put your name to. Share it." Now my story becomes little more notes. So that's the end of the main piece. But in going further, I'm writing how the man tries but fails. And then there's an event that brings the man sitting at the desk with the computer together with the man with the flask. And this unity provides support and enthusiasm to overcome the challenges. Eventually, there's a shot where everyone on the bus has a bottle of the elixir, and the children at the playground remain unaffected by the whole journey. There's another piece that I pulled out of your notes, Danny, which simply says, "Orchestrate. Let's delve into the mind. Let's learn to admit to real impediments, compulsion, and learnings. Let's look into the future. Let's see us there and then. There's no shame in it, only sensible preparation like in a play. Each character must be fully explored and situated in a history of itself, to see, to feel, to remember that which can be." So my notes now is that the orchestrate part is what we're doing in terms of building this play. In that sense, it's talking about what we need to do. And what I feel I need to do more character analysis first, find out what are these real impediments and compulsions of whether it's Danny Teal with an elixir or our next client who comes and says, yes, I want a business play. Once that is done, which is the character itself or the characters, we go into the product. We explore the product. In this case, it's the elixir. Now, I've got more notes on the elixir now, which is served as an aperitif at the beginning and served as a digestive at the end. It has a secret recipe, an even more secret hidden power of putting things in order. Let the elixir run the show. No longer hard to get started. The threat of dedication and fear of failure dissipate with every sip. Removes any disappointment. And I actually went to the shop. We've got this one. This is called the
Angostura, of course, bitters.
Angostura. Yeah. I tried to look.
It works well with gin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I do.
It kind of just drips out. You can't pour it, just little drops come. But yeah, it smells amazing. It's 44.7% alcohol.
Ooh.
I haven't been able to buy it anywhere other than from a shop that has a liquor license, but I have read that it comes, like you mentioned last time, under a different category and doesn't require a liquor license to be sold.
Right. Here you can buy it in the grocery store.
Yeah. Well, it's advertised. We have a grocery store called Woolworths here. And if you go to the website, you can see it on, but it just, for my local one, says not in stock. So yeah, to sum up this part, which I've presented, I guess, my progress and inspiration and developments from the business play side. What are your thoughts, Danny?
I have been revived. And the first thing that comes to mind is when I lived in New Orleans, I had a federal marshal who was writing a crime novel.
Ooh.
And he was doing his best to write it down. Also happened in Stockton, California. Had a guy who was talking about aliens invading Earth, and it was a good attempt. But both of these, as starting examples, gave me the opportunity that you seem to be in, which I am re-entering, which is editing a work, right? Because for me, this guy got to a point where, the aliens were there, they were about to attack Earth, and he was living somewhere in the caves of Indonesia or something of that nature. And I ended up writing 3 plays or whatever, stories, long stories too. I'll see if I can find it, about this human hero and how he was combating this alien invasion. So, and it ended up principally of me taking the hero and then bringing, women into the picture who were actually controlling the birth of aliens on Earth as a mixture of humans and all this sort of stuff. And then the federal marshal, of course, he had his little bits and pieces that I turned into a story. That's what I love doing. And it was pretty easy because the structure was always there. I have an animal clawing at my house.
Oh.
Okay, I think I know it's a raccoon.
Okay.
So, that came to mind when I was listening to you, because I was thinking I was being inspired by you and wonderfully written, I may add. Beautiful. Of thinking and listening for how smooth it was, and from a different perspective. I went from writer to director suddenly. You worked with my pieces. It became more clear with what you were saying visually, right? Highly visual, which of course, is good screen material.
Yep.
Putting all that together, and then me coming in, from the back end, like the luggage train or the baggage train behind an army, and thinking, okay, yeah, I can see that, because your work is really different genre than my work.
Okay.
And I started thinking, okay, what do we have here? We have a let's call it a novel, for lack of a better word. We get a novel, and then from the novel, they write a screenplay, right? So you got a movie, which seems to be the kind of procedure that we, at least at this point in time, are adapting, which is fine with me, because it's done quite often, as you know.
Sure.
Right? Turning novels into movies and stuff like that. So I think that what you've done is wonderful. I'll say it again. Well written, very visual, and exciting, in that the way that you're leading into a real story. Whereas, mine may be the, Dostoevsky kind of wandering of the mind as he's trying to figure out, how to kill the, the pawnbroker, and get away with all the money that she has.
Right.
So that it's really kind of deeply contextual, which of course, can lead to a number of different situations, like as in a series or something like that, right? Of where we compile incidents as they occur, introducing different characters along the way, introducing different plots, so that each one of these little sections I end up coming up with, or you your own, would be a continuation, a lot like, the Twilight Zone, right? Like every week you've got, something strange is going on here, and we're going to explain it.
That's right.
So I think you've actually promoted the idea that there's a very good life in this creation, and that you find it, from the evidence, very easily adaptable and enjoyable. I applaud you. Very nice. Very nice.
Well, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I like especially, I wrote something down, the power to achieve. Because it's those kinds of phrases that catch the mind, right? And won't let it go.
Well,
and then it talks about more than just getting the job done, but having the power, right?
Exactly.
Having what it takes, in local language, right? To see it through.
That's right. So this is what, what from my side, I want, and can see you really being great at, and it's the directing. And, I feel the same, I guess, as, as the character in here, and, the content coming out, which, insecure overachiever is always doubting themselves in some ways. But yeah, with a director, this is where things can change, and you do that so well, directing and picking out, okay, this is what we're going to move on, this is what we're going to change, this is what we need to emphasize. So, but I know that you're playing multiple roles here, because you're the client and you're the CEO of Datalogical Services, and we're writing a book together. So there's all these different mixtures and angles and perspectives that need to be considered. But yeah, you directing this piece, I think, will remain in the process where we have Datalogical Services, people come to it with ideas that are tired of the old business plan and the rawness and stale aspect of a plan, but are happy to invest in developing it into a business play, and the power of actually acting it out, superseding the power of writing it down. And the role we play as Datalogical Services, Danny Teal, the director, Troy
Production
Sadowski.
company.
Yeah, we're a production company. We can help with the editing, emphasizing what works, what doesn't, concise, how you want to move. And that becomes, the service of the company. And like you said, it turns into a series, reference to the Twilight Zone. But then we go, okay, and people are waiting, oh, what's the next play coming from Datalogical Services? I've got one, and I'm submitting it. So that's how I see it all developing. And like you said, I enjoy it. If we can make it work, then we're all going to just benefit from it through the enjoyment, but at the same time need to make it sustainable in terms of value creation for those that come to us.
Right.
And the cash flow that supports it.
Yeah. But I want to go ahead.
I think one last point, is that, you mentioned, the power of the elixir, the beginning, a middle, and an end. And those words have come up a number of times in our recording this morning. But the elixir itself, as a start and a finish, brings that power to know that, okay, I'm going to begin something. And once, our aperitif is out there. So like you said, we've got two, we can make it different colors. One's a light one, one's a dark one. And so you start, whether it's a few drops or a shot, it's up to you. And but that signifies that you're about to begin. And once you begin, you're on the journey, and the middle happens until the end. And again, you finish it with the elixir. That I think, is coming through as the message, not just for this product, but the power of what we offer, or what anybody offers. And it kind of comes in what we opened, the conversation with around the book of life. You're born, you have your life, you die.
I'm always tempted by these kinds of visions, waiting for the surprise, which is a lot like a lottery ticket. You buy a lottery ticket, you don't know whether you've got the winning number or not. Mm-hmm. And then they have the drawing and you find the results, right? But it's kind of the same way with us, that tension builder. And it involves what we might classify as the serial entrepreneur, right?
Right.
The guy who just can't stop. Mm-hmm. And I wondered and asked myself too, what is he trying, he/I/you/anybody trying to gain from this procedure, right? Is it just the thrill? Or is it he's trying to get it right? Or I suppose any number of motivations that this character would go through in trying to overcome that forbearing principle for me of where do you go when you get it done? Mm-hmm. I think you and I have somewhat of the same kind of reaction to that, because it's in some ways, once we have congealed again the idea, then we're ready for the next challenge. Mm-hmm. And we kind of leave the Jell-O in the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. And never get around to it until we realize that it dried out.
Yeah.
right? Or something
Sure.
like that, or somebody threw it away.
Mhm.
So, there's the intriguing part for me too, is that what do you call that moment when you got it? You've been told about its success because you're entering a whole nother phase, right? Not to be deterred by, you know, uh, firearms, tobacco, and explosives, I think now, and alcohol, and all of the sections in which the sin tax, right, is lauded on people who are actually doing something that other people enjoy. And, the government's not happy about that. They just think, oh, wow, it's addicting. How much money can we make out of that? Right. And what should we charge them? Because every time they do something, we want our piece.
Mhm.
And it's like, what are you, gang related? It's like a friend of mine says, he says, which mafia are you going to vote for this time? The Republicans or the Democrats? Because they have the same idea. They're just going to rob you blind, right? And then for you to keep in mind and well motivated that when you do reach that point, that you can hire attorneys and accountants to help you avoid paying any taxes at all, that you'll be a hero,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And the government will still make its money as it proves to the public that, damn it, we can be defeated. So why don't you try, right? While you're feeding us the whole while.
Mhm.
And that's the interrupting part I don't like in this process, because the scaling nonsense, right? I mean, why can't you just, like these people with these aperitifs, they never had, I don't think, from what my investigation has proven to me, is that they ever started out trying to be rich.
Sure.
I read a book about Krupp, which the German steel manufacturer that the Allies didn't bomb until the last few days, who were producing the highest quality steel in the Ruhr Valley in Germany. And they were still producing tanks and everything that, could be made of metal and its combinations and its alloys. And they didn't bomb them until the last day. Why? Because they needed that German steel producing capability to build tanks and weaponry for South Korea.
Mhm.
So they had a tendency of overlooking stuff until, they could figure out how it would work to their benefit, while
Mhm.
other people, the minions, right, were getting killed in the battlefield, or
Mm.
the British were being, taken to the edge until you realized that you had all their gold and you had given them loans, which sort of like old army desks and, worn out potato mashers and bowls that were cracked. And you were calling that war debt. And as you brought them down, then you could take them over.
Right.
So there's all of those aspects too about where do you want to go? That's my question for myself now. You get involved in this. Okay, you get to a point where you realize, I don't want this eternity. I may not be enjoying myself. So I take the money that other people made for me, and I make my escape.
Mm. Right.
Right.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
that's what life is all about, right?
Mhm.
That's it. That's all you need to think about.
Mm. Okay.
And is that, or when does that stop being a motivational factor? When you have more than you need, when you have your beach house, your mansion on a cliff, and yet at the same time, you're still leasing a car because it's not financially feasible for you to buy one. Leasing a car is tax deduction. It's like, is there ever a point when you stop thinking that, you're out to get everybody's goat? And that's your mark of achievement? There's so many impractical considerations in what I even hate the words starting a business. It's like, recently I commented, the government's always talking about jobs, right? I even told Meyer this, I said, man, don't talk to me about jobs. Talk to me about careers. That's what's wrong. People are not they don't have a career. They have a job. They're a wage slave. And they're not going to get anything out of it. And who knows, 2 days before retirement, they can get fired. And then what? You don't have the money to hire an attorney to get your money. So you start drinking or you go somewhere and you shoot yourself. You know, the ends are predictable. I look at one of my friends just yesterday. My friend Chris said to me, you know, Duke, he's got COVID. It's like, oh, really? I'll tell you the story about this guy sometime. You want to know the story of life, come to the country, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's happening all around you. And it's like this guy works for Libby Owens Ford. I think it's something now. They make glass, right? And he stuck it out. He weathered it out. When they came down here to use cheap Southern labor, they paid high prices to get everybody on board. And then they slashed the wages in half to see who would stay once everything is up and going. And Duke stuck it out. And a little like Chris, who's one of the best mechanical engineers I've ever met, is now, he served his purpose by exploring life and getting paid nothing. And now Duke, who stuck it out and who is still getting paid half of what he used to make, and now he's got COVID. Whatever that means to him, because Duke is the kind of person where, when he finds out he's got COVID, that he takes the low road, not the high road, takes the low road and starts feeling sorry for himself and going back through his life, figuring out why he got COVID and how soon it's going to be before he dies. And it's like, what can you do with a person who thinks that way? You can say, you're the most talented person on the earth, man. I've seen it. I know it. I've seen thousands of people who have less talent, 1/10 of what you've got, being filthy rich, if that's what you want. And he's always talking about it. But to do what is necessary to get rich, I think he'd rather do it for nothing, for the satisfaction of doing it.
Right. It's an interesting aspect.
What do you do with somebody like that? Because surely, they're going to bail. If they get closer and closer and they say, what do you mean I got to deal with accountancy? It's like, you don't, but we have to find somebody who does. And if you don't have the money, then we have to look even harder. And then I start saying to myself, like Chris and Duke, what's in it for me? And the moment I start looking at it that way, the project just dissipates. Right?
Well, yeah, that's what I think our goal or attempt or mission with Artological Services is to help make life fun and business life. So business is part of life, and you can be, a wage slave, or you can be the founder. I find it more enjoyable to be, in different parts of my life, I've been a wage slave, and it's worked for me, and I needed to do that. But, and it may work for others as well. But if you are in that space where you want to kind of take ownership, more ownership, and, make your business into your life, or your life into your business, then, what we're looking to do, what I see us doing, is helping you along the way with the business play. Let it be enjoyable. There's always going to be hassles. There's always going to be challenges. And that's what makes a play or a movie or, whatever story you're looking at, is there's challenge. But overcoming it is, the lessons learned, and there'll be some sort of help along the way. So just know that life is a story, and your business journey is going to go through hardships, and play with that and start from the beginning. And then it doesn't matter what happens. It will be, it seems like eternal, that you just sorted that out and now it's all crumbling again. And but this is the message, the deeper message of why you need a business play and not a business plan.
Well said. It's you know, we may be creating an audience of people who want to be entertained in this fashion, right?
Well, that's
Who,
right.
yeah, who are just interested in what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the audience, I think, will appeal to many. And, you know, I have nothing against people who want to just get a job. And, you know, it's a critical part, especially in data science. You need the experience. So I promote that. Go get a job, learn what you can learn by working in an organization. You know, it's going to be hard and there's going to be challenges, but then at the time that you feel is right, go the next step, start your own thing, and then, yeah, build from there. So, and those that are having their own job and, you know, in that stage of their life, I think these business plays are going to be very entertaining, and not just entertaining, but educational. So yeah, as that group are going to be our audience that just, you know, comment and like and be an observer. But then we're going to have another group of audience who are in the play. They're going, you know, I'm ready. I've got this idea. I've done the business plan. It just didn't work. You know, let's try a business play.
And who can say no to enthusiasm?
Well, that's right. Enthusiasm is one of those key ingredients that makes our secret formula, Datalogical Services, secret mix of process.
57 herbs and spices, huh?
But yeah, is one of those yeah, secret herbs and spices that makes it work.
Finger looking good, huh? Looking good. Okay, I want to broach another subject. Is we got a couple of things I want to talk about, just to say we covered them from some LinkedIn people. Do you want to stop the recording now, or do you want to continue doing it as we discuss this person and their business in the United Arab Emirates? What would you prefer?
I think we've got a good episode here. We can yeah, bring what we are about to discuss into the future videos. So
okay, all right,
we'll end this one here. And
okay, and I'll see you on the other side.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. See you soon.